to our brightest session of the day. So I feel like I'm making noise. No? So I am tired, yeah. No, so it's been this year where we've been losing people to, I don't know, circumstances. So Carolina Lopez was supposed to be here with us. She was wonderful in actually pulling this panel together, and she couldn't make it. She had, due to illness, she couldn't be here herself. We love her, we wish her the best, but we're still very happy and lucky that we have these guys here to talk about Spanish language world. No, we're talking about the synergies that exist, obviously, in the Spanish-speaking community. We're trying to understand how that might work, how it might create opportunities and challenges for artists to travel and work in different places in Europe. So we have with us Riobóo from Spain, who is a filmmaker, an animator, and a composer. And along with him, we have Lourdes Villagómez from Mexico, who actually works in Spain, who is herself a director, a producer, an educator in animation, and she also creates programming for festivals. And Juan Concha, who is from Colombia, but has been working in Europe, in Spain, in all sorts of levels of animation for shorts, for feature films, in different positions. So we are very happy to have them here to give us a little bit of glimpse of what could happen in the Spanish-speaking community and how that has allowed them to work in animation across the world. So please give them a round of applause, and I'll give the word to Lourdes.
Hello, and thank you very, very much for being here in this nice afternoon. You could be out on the beach, just so you know. And well, yes, thank you for mentioning Carolina. We sent her a hug and wish you were here. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about ourselves and what we have done, and thanking ANIMASYROS for the invitation. Oftentimes people don't put enough attention on the importance of festivals as meeting points. Just as an example, we have, I think, all met through animation festivals. And like many other works and cultural products, like interesting music has been produced in places where paths cross, like flamenco in Cádiz and Sevilla, jazz in New Orleans, salsa and son in New York and Puerto Rico, and in the same way, which is a weird notion, but here is my point. When you take people from different places and they exchange ideas, interesting things happen. So in the case of Spain and what is now considered Latin America and the south of the United States, which at some degree is also Latin America. It's been for centuries a brewing place for interesting things to happen in all walks of life. So having said that, I am originally from Mexico. My family is partly from Mexico, part from the south of the United States. I studied in Mexico, and then when I decided that I wanted to make animation, I went to CalArts, which is in Los Angeles. John Musker mentioned it this morning. And then went on to work in mainly advertising in Los Angeles and Mexico, and started doing my own work. So as a day job, I worked for many productions besides advertising in features and some series. And I've also done my own work. Now, none of that would have been possible if Mexico didn't have what I think many consider a very strong support for arts and culture. Like I went to the university, to a public university, I studied communication, then I got grants to go study abroad. Came back to Mexico, got grants as a young artist, I got production grants. there's this thing called the National System of Creators, which actually gives you a monthly stipend to make your own work for 3 years. And then you get bigger production grants when you're actually going to make films. There's support for short films, feature films, script writing, development. There's even prize for short films made by women and trans women, specifically for that. We also have grants for archiving and restoration. And so, yeah, like roughly half the films made in Mexico, feature films, are made with private funds, and then the other half are made with some sort of public support. Then when I moved to Spain, I've been working in different studios besides doing my own work. And I just realized when I was preparing what I was going to speak about for this meeting that I have been in one form or other involved in animation for more than half my life. I started at 23, I'm 55 now, so I've been in contact with many aspects of animation, from production assistant to cell painter to auxiliary operator to programmer, commissioner, and then lately, in 2019, well, after a brief stint at Spa Studios in Spain with Klaus, the Netflix Christmas classic, which was nominated, no, actually won the BAFTA. After that, I went on to work in a VFX studio for 2 years. And after spending nearly 30 years watching artists draw things frame by frame, I spent 2 years watching artists erase things frame by frame, which is really odd. And then COVID hit. I went from 2D animation at the beginning of my career and then made the jump to digital 2D animation, then what was called 2.5D animation, which was making things appear in 3-dimensional with shadows and lights, and then to 3D animation. And after COVID hit, I think after all those major shifts, I think the next big shift was COVID and how a lot of studios turned into these oil rigs somewhere on the internet. And I had the opportunity to work with a studio that was based in Buenos Aires, that had an office in Madrid with about 150 people spread across nearly 20 countries. I was in charge of the layout team. I was the producer for the layout team. And there's people that I haven't met to this day, of course. But it was very interesting because in no time, the head of production in Colombia, who was actually Argentinian, set up an equipment with an IT from Colombia too. I'm crossing to his speech. And we connected people from Europe, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Iran, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, Peru, the States. The client was in Los Angeles, and the project was actually an animated featurette for Descendants, the princess and saga from Disney. So that was very interesting. And after that, I hooked up with another studio that has been working remote since it started years ago, which was Leo Sanchez's studio, which won. I was rooting for you, Joanna Quinn. That was the studio that co-produced Alberto Mielgo's The Windshield Wiper. So I got the chance to be in the campaign, the pre-campaign and the campaign for the Oscars, and yes, they were really aggressive with that. So. And I worked with them in a couple of projects and going back to work with them again. And what was interesting here also was that we had access to artists from all over the world. And it's a Spanish studio. We work with a lot of Spanish-speaking artists. Some of them are based in Latin America. And that's been a major shift, because for a lot of artists in Mexico, being able to access productions, like international level productions, while still living where they are, has been a major thing. And also, a big thing, I think, is that wherever you live right now, like for a lot of artists in Mexico, being able to show their work abroad is gotten a lot cheaper and a lot easier. In the old days, you used to have to ship your tin with the film, which was super expensive. Well, first a video, and then if you got accepted to a festival, you had to send the tin. Everything was super expensive and slow, and it limited your chances a lot. One thing we do not have in Mexico, and that's something that hopefully we'll be able to fix, is that we don't have what they have in Spain, which is like a short film agency that supports works that have been finished in their national or international travel, which is super important. Because for a single filmmaker, and I was here for the Portuguese presentation yesterday, and for a independent filmmaker who most of the times does everything by themselves, the distribution of a film is at the end of everything, after you've been worn out by production and nearly dead by post-production. Then to start with the distribution is really hard. So I think it's very important to have someone to pick up at that point and start fresh with a good view, so that you can show your work abroad. So this year we had the invitation from the Annecy Festival to be the guest at Annecy. And it was a moment of great pride and joy for all of us, that if in Mexico before 1994, there was barely any independent animation. It all really started in '94 with a short film called El Héroe, which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. And when that film won, the institutional eyes were turned to animation. Before that, I wanted to study in the States, and people giving grants for arts, they said, no, that's a communication thing. You should go to the people who give grants to communication studies. I went to the communication, said, no, that's technology. You should go to the technology guys. And the technology guys said, no, that's arts. You should go. So there was no one in Mexico who would actually give anyone a grant to study animation. There were no schools in Mexico, and this is back in '93. There were no schools, and either you interned at a studio, which actually got me to producing, because I have never drawn properly, or you just had to do something else. There was just no way of doing animation, no one to teach you animation. So we'll get back to this at the end, but that's one thing that we've been really adamant about since when we started, we didn't have a way of learning animation. We've been really worried about passing on what little we know about animation to other people, and most often it's people that have not touched animation before. So right now we have, there's a lot of collaboration between Spain and some Latin American studios or filmmakers, and then with independent animation, there's, I would say, a bunch of us that have known each other for some years now, and whenever we can, help each other out or help new people out also, and tutor projects. And I think that's about it on my side. I haven't shown much, but if you wanna, if I can, ouch. Okay, so this is from Annecy. This is from the Annecy Festival, and I was part of the programmers committee that did the selection for this. There were 9 programs that ranged from archaeology of Mexican film, animated film, which were some films that went all the way back to the 30s, 40s, 70s. And then we also had works by, say, our golden boy, Jorge Gutierrez, who made the amazing Book of Life and also Maya and the Three recently for Netflix. He went to CalArts too. And after this, we noticed that there had not been any account of what Mexico had produced in animation. So we set out and got funds to make actually an archive of Mexican animation, and we're working on that right now. For NSC, we presented around 90 films, 90 short films, and there's, of course, what has been made with feature films. Just so you know, in Mexico, feature film, which is mostly shown domestically, is about $2 million. And the most expensive film in Mexico has been an animated film by a director, Carlos Carrera, who had made very short. Actually, he's the guy who made El Héroe, which is the one that won the Palme d'Or in Cannes. That was $6.5 million, and it got back only $1 million, which shows what a disastrous business that might be. Yesterday, when I was listening to the Belgian producer, Vivian, it was super interesting because, yes, I mean, the higher the budget, the more you can make, the bigger the risk, and also the less the freedom. So in Mexico, we tend to make films with funds, without funds, or sometimes in spite of the funds, which can also be a big constraint in some respects. Okay. And also please feel free to interrupt if you have any questions. Okay. So now, yeah, it's Mr. Concha's turn.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for having me here, people. Marianeta, Maria, Yanis, Evaristo. I will learn that by sure. Yeah. Coge, no, coge esto. Y solo el black. Y esto. Pero no vamos para arriba. Flashback. Finish. Okay, he's done. Le das aquí esta. No. Yes. Okay. So it's the talk is about co-production, right? With Colombia, and maybe we need to illustrate or make a context. So many years ago, the Italians they bring the cinema to Colombia, right? Because the story of Colombia is about violence and traffic, no? Is that the point? And it's a paradise, geographically it's a paradise. So it was not too easy to start a healthy context for co-production. That is the case today. There are a lot of cinema today, but they have just short history, don't worry. It's in black and white, but it's short. So the Domenico, two Italian guys, go there and bring the camera and bring it and start a huge production like the brothers Lumiere, but different because they stay there and live. They discover that it's a very nice country. They stay there. So they did, of course, films about crime, about violence that is present in our country. So let's jump so many years, and we can say this, how we did cinema in Colombia without taxes, tax shelter, rebate, and co-production that don't exist at that moment. So we say, with the hands, like maybe start here in Greece or in any other country, when there are not so much money to make films. So this is one of the top in the story of the cinema in Colombia. It's a film that still, if you have the opportunity to see today, it's not, how you say in English, the time don't avoid it, no? It's so good film, good rhythm, good story. Yeah. So he's an independent guy who decided to film that with friends. That this is a good point, no? To make films, the better way is to do with friends. Who is this guy? Maybe you know this guy, right? It's just to say what happened in Colombia. This guy just take the risk, the huge risk to go there and film. Is Werner Herzog. He did around 2 films or 3 films there, no? Cobra Verde, Fiscarraldo, all that. And he went there and he moves a lot the artists in the moment. He moved and motivated, right? And the only danger he get was his friend, Klaus, Kinski, and this beautiful documentary, My Enemy, My Lovely Enemy. No, it's a documentary about the shooting there. My Lovely Enemy. They almost kill each other there. So they bring the violence to Colombia. So there, more recently, but not yet with taxes, no fundings, nothing. La Estrategia del Caracol, I suppose somebody know that this film here was the most international at that moment. I should to say that there was an institution, because there are many people, lawyers, producers, working for decades, from the 60s, 70s, working to build and law and support and asking the government and making laws and making a structure. I want to say that because it's a long trip, right? Maybe somebody here maybe Veronique meet Claudia Triana, is the big queen of the cinema in Colombia, not in terms of filmmaker, in terms of managing and raising funds and build this Pro Imágenes, who is so strong. And she worked for years, working with politicians, working with many people to build this law and this structure, right? With more people, but she's really a queen. So she's the visible head. And Estrategia del Caracol, Sergio Cabrera is the most known guy, I think, from Colombia. This one was 2. Another top moment in the cinematography of Colombia is La Vendedora de Rosas. They went to Cannes, and it was a huge work between many people there, and work with France. When we talk about co-production, no, everybody know, we think in France first, no? Then we forget France, but we think in France, and we say, let's go with France, yeah. And we Spanish that, and then, maybe this guy, no. Okay, so that Victor Cabrera went to Cannes. It was so good in terms of cinema, in terms of distribution. For Colombia, it was like the World Cup, football World Cup, no? Well, everybody's saying the Cannes in directive, yeah. So this is Victor after many years, 20 years of the love of the cinema. So he's still doing films, but now with this system of taxes, private and public money. So it's an animation festival, right? Okay, so let's go for animation. This guy is another crazy guy. He's already passed away. He did 2-3 films in stop motion, alone, maybe with his family, in his house, but feature films. Say, wow, it's crazy. Cristóbal Colón, La Pobre Viejecita. So it's about, of course, historic, and this is legends in Colombia. Like a poet writes many short tales, and he did that. So another jump. What means why I put that? Because the subject, no, violence, drugs, etc. No more. It's comedy, dance, maybe in Colombia, but the things who punch more is that. So there is a guy did a short film about the little voices mean. He interviewed the kids who was a victim of the war. So the speeches was so strong, and he did some naive drawings, animated, and the short film was amazing. So he decided, not so agree with that, to do the same in a feature. So, or the same. In the short film, your heart is break. In the feature, breaks many times. No, that don't works. So, jump to these things. That means I just want to collect this institution, now the ministry, the official TV, and I can see that. Oh my God. That's it, producer. All producer, yeah. Oh, okay. La Comisión Fílmica Colombiana. So the minister, SENAC, is like a committee of many other institutions to decide many things about the money and about the roles. And ProImágenes is the institution. You should know that. You are here because interested, I guess, no, because friendship with us. You are interested in co-production, right? So ProImágenes is the institution that you have to looking for if you want to co-produce with Colombia. Is the institution that Claudia Triana is the director, because she knows everything, and she can. They make this methodology to get the money for private investment, public, and one tax that was military tax that all the citizens pay for it, but goes nobody knows where. So they work years and years to move this tax to the cinema, and that works. Of course, that money was in other pockets, sure, but now it's in the cinema. And one of these recent governments from, no political, but one of these presidents say, no, this tax is not cinema, no, let's put again in the military. But that don't work, that is again in the cinema. So ProImágenes is the place or the institution to check, and they create the FDC, el Fondo de Desarrollo Cinematográfico. So they create a lot of categories. You can see that, but it's a fiction, documentary, animation. At the beginning was not animation. That is 2003. So our recent story we can tell from 2003, when the law is start to work and have many parts. I understand so, but if you want to discuss about the details, we can do it after with a coffee or another thing. But there's many categories and different ways to funding. I mean, you can get tax rebate, you can get public funding and private, and you change bonus, but taxes. It's interesting. Estímulos automáticos, that means that if you want some of these fundings, you have another pack of money to travel in the festivals to promote your films. And it's automatic, you have the right to do that. I want, for development, I can ask for go to these markets and they give the money straight for do that. Another fundings, they say local, is the cities. Okay, and Ibermedia, I guess everybody know Ibermedia here. It's a strong tool of funding for example, Greek, Spain and Colombia, Greek, Spain and Mexico, one Latin American country with one European, and Portugal and Italy. So it's interesting for the producers that are in the room. And then, Bogotá Audiovisual Market. They are working for years, bringing people to Bogotá, inviting everything. So go there for 3 days to the market. Sometimes you feel that it's maybe not the good strategy because the criteria to select the people is so wide, but we are learning, no? Colombians are learning who is who, so they travel to Cannes, to MIFA, to Clermont-Ferrand, and to know the people who is the appropriate producer or filmmaker or distributor to bring to BAM. And BAM is audiovisual market in general, it's not just animation. So this is a good place to be if you want to produce with Colombia or Latin America, because they invite many other producers from Latin America. And this is another initiative, so small. Bogochors is the biggest short film festival, and they start to do small things, pitching sessions, and a small market for short films. Then, this is the result of these fundings. We have a lot of films, a lot of filmmakers, a lot of technicians come out like ants when the rain is gone and the sun comes. So we discovered there are a lot of people doing films in Colombia and go out and come back to Colombia. So this is one example. Cannes, always there are one Colombian film, Venice, Berlin. This was nominated for the Oscars, and we say in Cannes too, Camera d'Or. And even Api Chapong go there and shot his last film with the Colombian foundings. This one won in San Sebastian, and this is another case. It's a producer, Colombian producer, who hired a European director. Then, this is a project that Basque project who co-produce a small part in Colombia and make service, because this may be the way, make service first and then become a co-producer. This film you had here, no, I guess, in the festival, is also co-production with France and a small minoritary, also small. But this was a film done in Colombia by themselves, low budget. And this is GEMA in Spanish. GEMA is the Association of Animation Producers. That's important too, I guess, to share with you with Greece and another place, that is to be together. To be together, make the things happen easier, because one voice talk with the government and the things start to happen. Before that, all the producers spread around and nobody listened. So this is a way to listen. And this is a start co-production with Spain mostly, with Mago Productions. Who else? Well, there are some four producers in Spain who produce with Colombian already regular. And this is another case. This is a short film. These three ones is a TV series. So that means that is working today. That's working. The co-production for the TV series is working. Colombia, Spain. And this is a result of the co-production in short film. A French producer make the co-production with one part in Colombia and bring the director to France and produce one part in France. And they did already 3. The same producer, the same author. And this is the future. This project was already in Annecy, is around and is talking with many 2-3 producers to do a feature film, Colombian feature film in co-production. And this short film was selected in Cannes. It was the example of the co-production between Colombia and Switzerland. And I think it's the end. So that's it. It's easy in one speech like that, but it should be understand the laws and the tax rebates and all that, and do it. Just the intention and the will to do. Et voilà. Evaristo.
Thank you. Gracias, Juan Carlos. Evaristo, Juan Carlos. I have here a screenplay. I was studying during 1 week because my English is not very good, and I try to do my best. Okay, let me see. Let me find it. Okay. Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thanks to ANIMASYROS Festival for the invitation and hospitality. It's a pleasure to be here, to get to know this wonderful island and enjoy a few days of animated cinema in such good company. Thank you very much. Haristo. I would like to be able to make a portrait that it's as faithful as possible of the situation of animation in Spain. But as an independent animator that I am, I stay quite apart from the projects that are being carried out in terms of commercial animation, feature films for premieres in rooms, and national and international tour. Really sorry that Carolina Lopez is not here with us because she's a true expert of the current situation of Spanish animation. And what I can talk about with a little more clarity is the way we have in Spain our financing and carrying out independent projects and the path that must be followed to complete the project. And I would also like to tell about the work that I have been developing for years as animation teacher in course around the world with the help of the Spanish International Cooperation Agency, AECID. There are various aids that one can apply for us, an independent creator. But the first thing is to have a good project, well structured and with abundant information and detailed budget, storyboard, script, etc. But I imagine this is the same everywhere. Of the aid that can be applied in Spain, the most important is that of the Ministry of Culture, the largest, but also the one that requires the most documentation and more detailed project. Afterwards, each regional government has production aid, and many of these governments have their own agency for the distribution of short films and the promotion of their film production. This thing helps us too much, especially for the distribution, that this is the most important when you finish your film during 4 years working. The most difficult and most important is the distribution of the films, and we have this agency that help us too much. I want to highlight that depending of the political affiliation of the regional government, and depending on the type of project that is presented, there are more or less possibilities of receiving aid. I say this because in my case, I usually have difficulties in obtaining aid because all my short films have a clear social positioning, denunciation, and political activism, which entails some problems for selections in Spanish festivals. And as I said before, reduce my options to receive aids. In Spain, we have a very political, polarized society, as well still carry the historical hangover produced by our civil war. I like to talk, not very well, about the political class, the excessive power that the Spanish Catholic Church has, and the cultural traditions we have, such as bullfighting, etc. And this is not exactly good for making friends in my country. Even so, I don't want to give up my freedom as creator, and I always defend the use of animated films as an educational tool for creation social awareness. Another financing possibility, and of course it's not exclusive to Spain, is crowdfunding, a method that in our case has worked quite well for us. And for this, I give the microphone to Lourdes, who will explain in short mode. It's much better.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Can we connect the screen again? Yeah. Okay. About crowdfunding. In Mexico, we have, well, there are two things that I wanted to mention. Sorry, before going to crowdfunding. Number one, the title of of the talk was Spanish and collaboration in Spanish-speaking countries. Just to make the note, we have 69 official languages in Mexico, and there's 68 indigenous languages, and then there's Spanish. And the other thing that we got from the Spanish was after the Civil War, we got a lot of intellectuals, writers, artists, and educators, which made a big mark on the way cultural policy has been done in Mexico. So that we won that part of the war. And regarding the indigenous traditions, there's this thing called the tequio in some communities, in rural communities, when there's an event, like there's a wedding, party, where all the town collaborates, everybody brings something. So in Mexico, there's been a long tradition, and this has happened for film too, where if someone has a film, someone will come and work for free, someone will lend the camera, someone will act for free, and for us it's a very common way of working, I'd say. So years and years ago, when Kickstarter first came out, I'm like, finally, there's a way of supporting each other in this, like, and it's totally a cultural thing, because I've spoken with people from different places, and some people just don't really understand why you would give money to an artist to make their own project. And to us, it's like in the States, like in Mexico, there's not tradition of philanthropy for the arts as there is in Italy or in the United States, where money can, like big chunks of money from private funds can go to fund art. But philanthropy tends to go towards social causes more. But for a lot of projects in Mexico, it had worked very well. And in our case, for one of Coque's films, I'm also a producer for some of his films, we were able to raise part of the money to, like the initial funds, to keep going with the production, besides getting private funds and public funds. And I want to mention also this film, Sultana's Dream, that just premiered last weekend in the San Sebastián Film Festival, because this is a feature film made by a woman director, Isabel Erguera, and at its very beginning, back in 2013.
Yesterday, I had a chat with my father. He wanted to know about my last boyfriend, and I tried to explain him how complicated relationships are nowadays. But he just said, if people would talk less, they'd be much happier.
First time in India? Did you come with your husband?
Not at all.
The producer is actually one of the producers is half Spanish, half Mexican. And in the very beginning, the first funds that we got for this film were through crowdfunding. So that was a way for her to start making. So we really believe in crowdfunding and also in collaboration. And here I'd like to mention our most important collaboration. Our child, who just turned 15 the day before yesterday. He's a festival child. And I think that traveling and sharing experiences, teaching has gotten us also to doing interesting work. Do you want to talk about your work? Okay. One second.
Okay, finally, I would like to make a small note about my work as a stop-motion teacher with the help of the Spanish International Cooperation Agency, which has been supporting it for years through the Acerca program. I have had the opportunity to teach my workshops in many countries with special attention to Africa, Senegal, Morocco, Egypt, Ethiopia, Equatorial Guinea, Mozambique, Jordan, Iran, India, Mexico, Honduras, Venezuela, and recently Brazil. The last week I was there. And are some of the countries I have visited with these workshops. The possibility of spending a network or artistic creation.
Okay, so since we don't have Carolina here to moderate, well, Juan Carlos, you have been working also in Spanish productions as a Colombian, and you've been a TD and a producer for some.
Yeah, you have this in another folder if you. Bueno, yeah. Yeah, I really developed my my career in Barcelona. So I worked with France. And the last two feature film was with French co-producers. So yeah, we can just check that. Is that maybe you know Giuseppe? That was won a César, an European Animation Award. I started with that in France so many years ago. What else? The Illusionist, maybe you know. Amos. Yeah. Chiquirita. I direct this series for Germany, CDF. And this is the last one. We did this feature film with Holland, Portugal, and France. So I think. But also Giuseppe is a good example of co-production, but maybe another conference, no, because it's with Europe. But my career is mostly in Europe than Colombia. In any case, I work a lot with them, with the Bogo Shorts, with Claudia and Preimágenes. I help a lot when they come to France to make a networking and to select who is who, invite people to the BAM. And what else? And we will do now pitching training in Colombia to try to discover more short films and try to bring the co-producers.
Okay.
Mostly from France, of course.
Yeah. In the case of Mexico, since we're closer to the United States, the efforts of festivals like Pixelatl, which is a market and a festival of Mexican animation, are more centered in the making exchange and getting the big studios to Mexico. And thanks to that, a lot of productions have come up, like Cartoon Network has been producing some work by Mexican young artists. Then, of course, this year we have also Guillermo del Toro's Taller del Chucho and Pinocho came out. So it's odd because in Mexico we don't have that strong bond with Spain in animation. There is a very strong bond with film in general, like San Sebastián and the Guadalajara Film Fest, the Ibero-American Film Fest. Collaborate a lot. Morelia Film Fest also has a lot of presence in Europe and Spain, but I would say we're still not there in collaborating with Spain in Mexico. There's a lot of there's more collaboration between Latin American countries and the States, between them or with the States, than with Spain. But
it's recently, no? It's recently because our history of collaboration, co-production it's more recently.
Yes, but I mean, there was a big co-production story like in the 30s and 40s, while the rest of Europe was at war. Mexico was, and the States, Mexico was producing a lot of films that were seen internationally. So there's a lot of films that were made in the 30s, 40s, and then there was this big dip, and a lot of bad Mexican cinema came out, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and there was a renaissance in the 90s, also because there were 2 big film schools and a lot of collaboration also with the Cuban film school, San Antonio de los Baños. A lot of documentary got made, and at the same time there was an experimental scene from which the experimental animation and independent animation scene came out. What else should we talk about? Oh, I only found 1 Greek film in co-production last year with Mexico, which is, I mean, about 250 films, 300 films that were produced in Mexico. There was only 1 Greek co-production, so I think that would be a path that we should explore more.
Automatic opportunity for distribution just because of the common language it feels, or does that not really matter? It doesn't open any automatic doors to distribution.
I wouldn't say you have automatic doors, but mostly because we're competing in Mexico, we are competing against the states and the majors. So Mexico has its own thing, just trying to get Mexican films to the Mexican screens. And that, I think, is also a problem in Spain and probably in Colombia. I mean, there are the distribution quotas for national films are not strongly in place or not high enough so that people can see the films from their own countries. You have, when you go to a multiplex or a film place, you have a lot of American productions going on. Also, you cannot compete with the marketing from the majors, and that's a big problem. So there are some unions for technicians in Mexico, but like what we call the gremio, like a trade union for animation and for film, are trying to push more and more to have an established quota of Mexican films that can be seen in Mexican screens. It's not even a problem of the distributors. It's something that is imposed from abroad. You know, if you play Spider-Man, then you also have to have this, and that film in the same package. And money for the exhibitors doesn't really come from the film. It comes from actually selling the candy. And so for independent projects, it gets difficult. I would say that there aren't that many films, Mexican films, that actually make the initial investment back. Some of them do because there's like comedies and things that will appeal to a broader public, then you can have that. Then there's also all the films that are being made of the 50% of the films in Mexico that are being made with private funds, Netflix is making like 1/4 of that. And then there's Amazon and what used to be Televisa, a big television company. So they have more chance of being seen than small independent film co-produced by Portugal, Spain, Italy, and different places. There's, I would say, a limited circuit of independent film places to see this type of work. Also, there's very, there's a different audience for that type of cinema.
Are there any South American countries that have any kind of special work status in Spain, where it's easier for people that are animators to come and work in Spain? Not really.
No, and that's a big problem. But on the other hand, for animation, since everything is now online, then that is not a problem, because you can cash your salary wherever you live, and companies are more and more used to paying everyone in different currencies, in different places. That, on the other hand, is a problem when it comes to, say, working hours, stability with jobs, which it's been a big problem in Spain, I think. Well, a problem, it's bigger in Mexico or in Colombia.
I should say that the pandemic helped us in many ways. No?
Yeah, it leveled the field.
For the subject you told before about distribution, for Giuseppe was perfect, pandemic, because there was not Hollywood movie in the theaters, so all the theaters put Giuseppe even in two theaters at the same time, so the people go to see Giuseppe in France. Then in Spain, it's similar. So not just because the film, everything helps there, no? And the other door open is that remote work. So even before pandemia, because for the example of Buñuel in El laberinto de las tortugas, they can move some money and small teams in Colombia, in Mexico. That's happening now. That's happening, and it's good. It's good because I think we need to explore possibilities to do films as a survivor.
There's also a big chance coming with the writers and actors strikes now in the US, because there's going to be the same way that shooting films stopped during COVID, and then there was like no post-production, so there weren't like a lot of films. And then there were the platforms. There was like this huge, it sank for cinema theaters, the amount of people that were going. So now I think there's going to be a chance for European movies and for Latin American movies to be seen more, because at least some of the quota from the American studios will be lessened.
Go to the bar.
Lourdes, do you work on Mexican projects?
Do I work on Mexican projects these
Yeah.
days? No, I have not been producing Mexican projects these days. Actually, I have been quite disconnected. I've seen a lot of Mexican films, and I've seen like all that has been produced. But no, I've mainly been producing. Well, for the past years, I've been working like on big international projects. We have not been producing. We're waiting for Coque to get on with his next film. And no, but there's a lot going on in Mexico. I was really surprised about the amount of people that came to Annecy. There were a lot of very young studios, also we have a very rich cultural and visual tradition. And like in most families, someone draws, writes stories, or dances, or sings, or plays an instrument. It's very embedded in everyday life, just the arts in general. So there's a lot of people doing stuff, all the time. A lot of young people coming up with interesting stories. And also there's a drive to do things, because there aren't enough resources most of the time to do things, so people come up with really innovative ideas on how to finish work. And people are very driven and are not afraid to knock on doors, because that's the way things have been always done there. And I don't know if you find to be different in Colombia or in Spain. Like people just pushing their projects forward by themselves.
I think it's the same here, no? It's an initiative, individual initiative, and you push until we find a producer, a nice producer, who help you to move. And in this room, there are nice producers that maybe have questions, I hope. Maybe. I should say that the pianists have related with the subject. We get Ibermedia. That is an interesting thing, because we don't need to produce nothing in Peru who apply for Ibermedia, so become co-producer, but Ibermedia have this flexibility. We can move the money and not mandatory to produce in the place. So it's good money. What's 150,000? Not bad. You can finish the film with that.
That's a lot of stress for me. I hear that and I'm like, oh my God, the deadlines.
Well, thanks for sharing your experiences with us. We
No,
really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
We hope we keep in touch and that if you need money from Latin America or Spain, please. The money is there.
Thank you. But it's